Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. So this is another very interesting week for the market, and we're going to look at Standard, Modern, and Legacy as we always do, but it's going to look a little bit different this week. First off, we're going to look at Standard as always, and Standard is pretty quiet right now and has been for a little bit. Modern is what's going to be really interesting this week. Now we're going to look at modern legal cards, and a lot of the cards that are going up in value right now and are spiking are not necessarily cards that are seeing play in a lot of modern decks, but they're seeing play due to the fact that they're awesome upgrades for these Commander 2016 products that recently came out. If you haven't had a chance yet to play with any of the Commander 2016 decks, I would definitely encourage you to check them out. It's actually an awesome product. They're a lot of fun out of the box, but of course, a lot of players are going to want to upgrade those products and make those decks a little more competitive, and there's certain cards that just fit perfectly into that role for a number of these decks. So, having said that, let's get into the market watch for this week. And of course, we'll start off with Standard as we always do. And you're going to see the cards that lost value this week. No big surprises here. These are basically the same cards we've been looking at for a while now. And for the most part, these are big cards in Standard, but they've just been slowly declining as more and more packs are being opened and players get their decks together. Coming in number 5, we have Nissa Vital Force, down 50 cents to $7.20. Coming in at number 4 is Saheeli Rai. She's down 51 cents to $5.32. Now, she's a little bit different than the other cards that are on this list today. She never really did find her foothold. Now, she's a relatively cheap planeswalker with 3 casting cost, and she has some pretty big effects. I think at some point, whether it's down the road, maybe in Standard, but more potentially perhaps Modern, or even one of the Eternal formats, I do feel like someone will figure out a purpose for this card at some point down the road. So, I mean, picking these up for $5 a piece is pretty cheap. If you can get them that cheap, it's really kind of no harm to just kind of pick them up just in case for the future. Coming in at number 3 is Torrential Gearhulk, down 52 cents to $15.75. Coming in at number 2 is Smuggler's Copter, down 74 cents to $12.02. So this one's going to drop probably a little bit quicker than some of the other cards, considering it is a rare, not a mythic rare. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Virtuous Gearhulk, down 84 cents to $9.70. Alright, let's talk about cards that have increased this week. Now, much like you saw from the decrease side, the increases are very, very small. In fact, much like on the decrease side, there's no card that even reached $1 as far as change this week. So Standard is holding very, very steady. Now, the good news is the format's not completely crashing or anything, because we're not seeing cards just hemorrhaging value. But everything's staying very, very steady as players are just now kind of waiting to get to Ether Revolt at this point. Coming in number 5 is Kalitas, Trader of Get, up 35 cents to $20.99. Coming in number 4, Game Trail, up 37 cents to $3.83. Of course, part of the Aetherworks Marvel decks. Coming in number 3, Selfless Spirit, up 43 cents to $9.63. Big part of the blue-white flash decks, which are really dominating the format right now. Coming in number 2, Liliana, The Last Hope, up 46 cents to $40.86. Of course, she sees play in Delirium, but is also seeing a lot of play in Modern Jund, and that's what's keeping her around that $40 mark. And finally, coming in at number 1, Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, another card from Blue White Flash, up 87 cents to $9.32. Alright, let's talk about Modern. So, let's start off by looking at the cards that lost value this week, and you're not going to see any big losses. Again, Modern is staying relatively steady, which is, again, good news for the format in general. Coming in number 5 is Through the Breach, down 82 cents to $44.99. Coming in number 4 is the Conflux, Noble Hierarch, down 99 cents to $66.25. Coming in number 3, Platinum Imperium, down $1.52 to $18.34. A lot of speculation around this card when Madcap Experiment came out in Kaladesh, but that deck hasn't quite gotten there. Not to say that it won't at some point, but some of the interest in this card is starting to wane. Coming in at number 2, Scalding Tarn, down $1.92 to $82.55. Enemy colored fetch lands desperately need a reprint. Don't know what else to say about them. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Scrying Sheets, which is down $1.96 to $14.84. This is one of the Scred Red cards, and it has had the biggest spike in the past, and now is starting to come down as you would expect. I expect all the cards that spiked from Scred Red to start to see a decrease at this point. All right, let's talk about the modern cards that have gained value this week. So I do get a lot of questions along the lines of, a lot of times you talk about cards in a particular segment that really don't have anything to do with the format. And that's going to be the case today. We're going to talk about a lot of Commander cards that are modern legal cards, but no, they're not really seeing play in the modern format itself. So the question is, why do we do that? Basically, we have a couple options. I could completely omit these Commander cards and maybe even put them in a separate segment, which would make the video longer. And I don't really want to do that. But if I were to do that, what we would see is, instead of talking about these Commander cards that are seeing huge spikes and that really are the headline and the big story of the week, we would instead be seeing things like Tarmogoyf has gone up 85 cents. Because once you start getting that low into the list, especially in a soft market or a softer market that we're in right now, you're not going to see a whole lot of changes there. You're not going to see the story. And today the story is these Commander decks, more so than anything that's happening within the modern format, at least for this week. Now that could change in a couple weeks, obviously, as the Commander product gets a little bit older. We get closer to Modern Masters 2017, or a major modern tournament showcases a deck that no one's seen before. That's going to tell a very different story, which is going to become a little more modern format centric, of course. So having said that, let's jump into the cards that gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Kruk Clan Ironworks, up 228 to 762. So does this card see modern play? It actually is in an Ironworks modern deck, but it's very fringe. You don't see it very often. This is really increasing due to the fact that it makes sense to insert this into the Invent Supremacy Commander 2016 deck. Coming in at number 4 is Leyline of the Void, up 235 to 1786. This is the Guild Pack version. And this card has been a pretty key sideboard card in a lot of modern decks, but it is going up a little bit this week. It's fantastic to deal with decks like Dredge, for example. However, it does see play out of Jund sideboards, and Jund is doing really, really well right now in the format, and I think that's part of the reason this is going up a little bit. Also, another deck that's doing really well in the format still is Dredge. Dredge also plays this out of the sideboard to deal with mirror matchups. So with those two decks driving this, I do think that's why you're seeing a little bit of an increase this particular week, but this is a fantastic staple, basically, for your modern sideboards, and will continue to be going forward. Coming in number 3, Arkham Dagson, up 954 to 2199. And this is another card that makes sense in the Invent Superiority deck. Now, here's the thing with this card, though. We saw this starting to go up a couple weeks ago, and it was much like the card we looked at a few moments ago. It was going up $1, $2. It totally made sense with the fact that players were picking up the Commander decks and then wanting to upgrade. This is a pretty big spike. This is almost $10, and as a matter of fact, the next two cards we look at are in the same boat, and they're going up even higher than this one. So I think these cards started out as cards that were mainly found by players that wanted to upgrade the deck. Now, I do think because of that, some investors are jumping on these cards too, and maybe even trying to do a buyout in some situations. So this is a very unnatural spike. Even though it is a hot card, this spike is very high for what it is, I think. So keep that in mind. If you happen to pick up these decks over the next month or so, or maybe you get them for the holidays, you may want to wait on picking up a few of these cards, and probably this one and the next two in particular. Coming in at number 2 is Contagion Engine, up 1136 to 1599, which is a huge percentage increase of what this card is. This card makes sense in the Breed Lethality deck. Fantastic upgrade for that particular deck. And actually one I didn't mention in my video. I probably should have. But it was mentioned in the comments below, which was very good. And I appreciate that always. So, yeah, Contagion Engine, another card that if you are thinking of picking it up, I'd probably wait a little bit. This spike won't be able to hold. At some point, they're going to want to reintroduce these back into the market in higher quantities. And finally, coming in at number 1, another card for Breed Lethality, Doubling Season. Ravnica City of Guilds version up 367 to 55.99, with the Modern Masters version going up 1437 to 65.95. Now, it seems like if there is a buyout going on, it's focusing for some reason on the Modern Masters version more so than the original version, and that one's actually about $10 higher right now than the Ravnica version. I actually like the art on the Ravnica version better personally, but I don't know just what the general consensus is on that. So, having said that, though, Doubling Season is almost a no-brainer for that particular deck, right? Like, it just feels like it just belongs there. So it's one of those things you didn't have to really think real hard to come up with this card as an upgrade. And because of that, it has been kind of the focus maybe of all these cards. But again, a $15 spike in the Modern Masters version feels unnatural to me for sure. All right, let's move on to Legacy. So again, much like Modern, a lot of times I do get the question in the Legacy portion of the video. You don't necessarily talk about cards that are seeing play currently in Legacy decks. Well, the main reason is, again, the story, the headline for Legacy legal cards right now is the fact that people are buying up reserve list cards to either try to flip them or perhaps collect them in some cases. And yes, there are some impacts to some fringe formats like 93, 94, right? That's definitely a thing out there too that sometimes does have an impact on these cards. The problem being the actual Legacy playable cards aren't seeing big changes right now. Again, that can change if a new deck's introduced and something completely changes the format. But at least right now, due to the fact that it feels like less and less people are playing paper Legacy over time, that these cards aren't really moving that much. Many of them are staying relatively stable. For example, Force of Will is a card that's a key card, hasn't moved a whole lot in a very long time. It saw a dip back when it was reprinted with Eternal Masters, but other than that, it hasn't really moved all that much over the course of years at this point. So you're not going to see a lot of changes in some of those key cards in the Legacy format, unfortunately. So this segment, and I'm thinking of maybe finding a way to rename this, I'm not really sure what to call it though, is really focused more on the cards that are Legacy legal that are seeing changes in the market, because that's really where the story is. All right, having said that, coming in number 5, Moat is down 1971 to 572.48. This one saw a pretty big spike, and that's pretty much the trend you're going to see in the cards going down this week. Moat saw a spike, again, another spike a couple weeks ago, even though it had a big buyout a number of months back. And now, again, it's starting to stabilize down. Coming in number 4, Wrath of God Unlimited version down 24.33 to 18.41. Huge price drop here. This saw a giant spike about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, and it really felt like a potential buyout was trying to happen there, and now it feels like these cards are, again, being reintroduced into the market. So you may ask, why buy out Unlimited Wrath of God? Well, some folks don't have the credit to try to buy out alpha or beta versions of it, so they go to the next best thing, which is the unlimited version. And there are a lot of collectors out there that, again, don't have the capital to invest in alpha and beta, so they want to try to put together cards from unlimited. Again, it's the next best thing. Revised has a big drop-off in value due to a much higher print run. Unlimited still has that low print run, and there's a certain mystique about it still among collectors. So because of that, players will gravitate to some of these cards like Wrath of God periodically to try to attempt a buyout. The other thing about this card, which I think draws a lot of attention to it, is the art. Quentin Hoover art, which really looks incredible. And in recent years, of course, when they've reprinted this card, it has new art. And that does lend a little bit, again, to the mystique and the focus of this card for collectors. Coming in at number 3 is City of Brass, down $26.80 to $94. Of course, this is the Arabian Nights version. Coming in number 2, Volcanic Island Unlimited, down $27.28 to $449.96. And finally, coming in at number 1, the Tabernacle at Pendrevale, down $82.25 to $1,182.49. So this card's come down a little bit this week. I still think the fair market value, quote unquote, for this card is probably around $1,200. All right, let's look at the cards that have gained value this week. Coming in number 5 is Diamond Valley, up $13.60 to $218. This is another one of those Arabian Nights rares, very popular right now among collectors. Coming in number 4 is Unlimited Force Field, up $15.65 to $154. One thing to remember, there's a lot of cards from Unlimited that didn't make the reprint over into Revised other than the Power 9. And this is one of them. And I think over time, collectors are going to gravitate more and more to those cards. Again, cards like Force Field have a very, very small print run in the scheme of things, only seeing print in Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited. As far as Revised cards go, you can still get a lot of Revised cards very cheap, with the exception, of course, of the dual lands that are just very highly sought after. For the most part, everything else in Revised is very, very affordable due to the high print run. That's untrue of Unlimited and the sets that came before it. So Force Field is another one of those cards I think over time will continue to creep up. Coming in number 3 is Bayou, Unlimited version, up $20.54 to $285. Number 2, Unlimited Underground Sea, up 27.36 to 558.47. And finally, coming in at number 1 is Tropical Island Unlimited, up 29.48 to 370.18. And that is our market watch for this week. So another very interesting week. Like I said, when we talked about the modern and legal cards, I would be very careful about picking up some of those upgrades, especially the top 3 right now. They look very inflated at this point, so be very careful. I do think those will start to come down a little bit over the next month or two for sure, probably after the holidays and players have kind of bought up their commander decks. At that point, I think you'll start seeing a decrease in the value of some of those cards. Also, I think that this is going to be a very interesting month going forward. I do think things will be a little bit soft for the next few weeks, but we're getting closer to Aether Revolt. As a matter of fact, we've already got some cards that have leaked or been previewed, whichever. It's still a little unclear where they came from, but there have been a few cards that have come out. Players are starting to think about Aether Revolt and talk about that, so that will spark Standard. And of course, shortly after that, Modern Masters 2017 will happen, which will definitely spark Modern. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up, even if it's going to be a little slow probably for the next few weeks. So until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.